Hello, everybody. This is Mark Kumar, a lifestyle entrepreneur and a proud founder of Simple Podcast Cloud, a platform for podcaster by podcaster. With us, you have one account, you get everything unlimited. In case you're wondering, what in the world you get unlimited? Unlimited shows, unlimited storage, unlimited pretty much everything you could think of. And then also unlimited bandwidth, listen, anything you could think of, because we want our podcasters to grow and not penalized for their success. So without any further ado, we have another amazing podcaster with us today who is going to help you take your podcasting game to the next level. So Nick, please take your time to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Nick from Boise, Idaho. We bleed blue here. I've been a podcaster for about 5 years. I guess I've been a content creator for about 5 years, podcaster for more like 3. I'll get in more to the weeds of that in a little bit, I guess. Really, I think I started podcasting right around when I found out I was going to have my first daughter. And, I basically, I had one of those moments where it's like, oh crap, what am I doing with my life kind of things. And what legacy am I leaving behind? And so I kind of was like, well, you know what, ever since I was in high school, ever since I was little, really, all I wanted to do was entertain. And it's like, well, what could I entertain with now? I'm a nobody, So I really wanted to do something I was passionate about, and that was video games and kind of just nerdy stuff. And so that's kind of how ThreadX Reproductions was born, was with my child being basically.
There you go.
And so that's kind of how it started. And now here we are 5 years later, 5.5 years later. And about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 podcasts later.
Holy cow, 8 podcasts?
Yeah. I basically been, trying to always evolve, trying to always figure out, okay, if this isn't working, what can we do to kind of change the algorithm in our favor? And, it was kind of a mixture of, when we first started, we called ourselves the Idaho Couch Potatoes, and we were trying to go for a more local, like kind of homebrew kind of thing. Because I looked at YouTube, and I'm like, okay, there's a bunch of people on the east side. There's a bunch of people in like LA, and maybe even 1 or 2 people from Seattle or something. But I've never really noticed anybody really from like the Northwest other than Seattle, that being the one takeaway. And so our goal was kind of be like, well, we're the Idaho boys. We wanted to be a lot more local, a lot more, I guess, what's it called? Totally forgot what it's called, but a homegrown kind of feel to it, where we're your local boys, and that's kind of how it started. From there, it was really just people would leave, we would get new team members, and it was always about kind of continuously evolving. And not only that, but when we'd have a new person join, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like they were coming into the middle of something. So hence 8 podcasts. We would always kind of like change it up if we would have a new person, or if we just felt ourselves kind of wavering on a particular podcast, like, this is kind of running its course. We can't really figure it out. Let's, start from scratch kind of thing.
So how many different industries or niches have you created? Obviously 8 different niches. I'm just curious to know what those niches are.
So I'll kind of go down the line from beginning to end. Idaho Couch Potatoes was supposed to just be like, hey, we're just 2 nerds on a couch talking about whatever we wanted to talk about. We did want to have a little bit more of a localized feel to it. After that, we turned into the Deadly Operative Grunt Show, which a funny story about that. It was basically supposed to be like Conan O'Brien for nerds. Like, so I actually had like a desk, and I'd have, whenever I'd have a guest, they'd sit on a couch and we'd talk things out that way. That was really fun. I think like if I ever had it my way, I would love to go back to that and be the Conan O'Brien for gamers and nerds. But at the time, it's just like, I just don't think a lot of people in YouTube, which was what I was on at the time, was really looking for something that was an hour and a half long where we talked about video games. And if they were looking for it at like IGN, GameSpot, and like the really big places, the established places. So it was really hard to get going there. So then that's when we started with Rocky Mountain Slackers, which was really just the Deadly Operative Grunt Show with a different name. And that's when we officially started, I guess. That's when we popped our podcast cherry, if you will. And that's when we started doing that. And it was kind of the same thing where we just really wanted to talk about whatever was kind of hip and now at the time. Then the first time we really hit a niche was actually with Once in a Fortnight. And that's when we talked about Fortnite. You know, if you don't know what that is, you might want to check your pulse, because you can't be alive and not know what Fortnite is. But yeah, we talked about Fortnite. It was really right when it first started, before like the Battle Royale, which is obviously what it's known for now. And we started talking about Fortnite. We were just having fun with it. That was probably one of our biggest successes, because at the time, Fortnite wasn't really popular yet. It hadn't done its Battle Royale run. And so not a lot of people were like, oh, what's Fortnite? You know, click, clack on their keyboards or whatever. So like we had maybe a few hundred listeners, but even then that was like our first time like, oh, okay. People are listening. Like we actually have to say stuff that matters. So that was our first time, like eye-opening, like, oh God, like seeing that kind of tick up week after week was like kind of exhilarating, but at the same time was like, you know, kind of gut wrenching, because it's like, oh crap, like, you know, now we have to worry about what we're saying, whereas before it was just two guys chilling out talking about a game we liked, you know. And then yeah, the boom really happened when Fortnite really happened, which was with Battle Royale. And so then all of a sudden we went from triple digits to quadruple digits. We're sitting in the 4,000, 5,000 area. And so now, like, that's when we really found it. And it was really interesting because we really tried to keep the co-op version alive, which is, you know, for those of you that may not know, it's called Save the World. It's basically a tower defense, you know, and we try to keep that alive. We try to always talk about that at least once an episode, but really a bulk of the episodes started becoming about Battle Royale, because that was like the new and hip thing, you know. Do you play video games?
I used to once upon a time, but not. It's been a long 10 years ago.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I'm 32, going on 33 now. I got 2 daughters or whatever. So most of the time when I hear somebody, oh, I used to, it's because, you know, life got in the way. And that's kind of been always one thing that's maybe set me apart, is that, you know, a lot of people view video games as a hobby, whereas I feel like for me it's a lifestyle. You know, some people run, you know, some people run for a living and like, oh, I'm a runner. You know, some people love movies. Oh, I'm a movie buff. You know, I am a gamer, and that's not just like casual, like, oh, I kind of do it on the weekends, and you know, I just no, I live it. You know, I'm in the Twitter. I'm looking at all the new and hip stuff. I'm always keeping up to date with stuff. And yeah, I kind of lived that. So for a while I lived Fortnite, you know, I lived that kind of ecosystem, you know, and that was really, like I said, our first time where we found our niche, and it really kind of exploded.
I'm really curious now, because I like to call myself a lifestyle entrepreneur. It seems like you're a lifestyle podcaster. I never thought I would meet somebody who would go into like different industry or different niches, if you want to call it, and then go follow their passion. That's what I do. Like I go to different industry because
Mhm.
I love it so much and I find success in it. And then let's go. And now you are truly a lifestyle podcaster. I don't know if you
Mhm.
ever thought about that before or not.
Yeah, yeah. We try to always put ourselves into it because, Fortnite being one of our biggest podcasts at the time, but there were other podcasts out there. And whenever we would have like kind of viewer mail come in, one of the main things that, drew people to us was us, and so we always tried to be. I mean, I know this sounds so cliche nowadays, but it's like we did try to be like authentic, so like when we didn't like something that came in the game, it's like we were very outspoken about it, which can be both good and bad. Because if you agree with me, great, we're all having a good time. But if you don't agree with me, suddenly it's like I'm the devil and I'm speaking, fake news. You know what I mean? But yeah, uh, attaching myself to that niche was really interesting. And it happened again. I can get to that in a little bit, but it's like that was like the first time we've experienced it, and it was kind of like a ride, and I wish it didn't have to stop, but it was like one thing after another in life kind of happened, and it ended up kind of fizzling out, not listener wise, but just like us and our passion. It was there, but like it wasn't fully there. And it was the number one thing we always wanted to do was to make sure that whatever we were putting out was 100% us. And so if we weren't 100% into Fortnite anymore, it just seemed disingenuous to just be like, hey guys, let's talk about Fortnite. This new weapon came in here and yip dee 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 doo, yay. Like it was so hard for us to like fake it, and that was the number one thing that I felt like would have killed the podcast anyways, is being fake, so as far as lifestyle, quote unquote, we really did put ourselves into it. There was an episode that we dedicated. It was Valentine's Day. We put it out right on Valentine's Day. So it was actually me and my wife. And we talked about how we met. We talked about how we got married. We just went through and just talked for like a whole hour. Eventually we got to Fortnite so that we could call it, once in a fortnight. But it really was just like us talking, and it was me and my wife doesn't even do podcasts, so it was really just me and her having a dumb conversation.
Okay, so what other podcasts have you done besides
So
this?
right around the same time, we were still doing Rocky Mountain Slacker on the side. The way we
Okay.
basically had it was once in a fortnight. If you don't know what a fortnight is, it's every 14 days. I'm hilariously funny. But we would do that every other week. So to fill in the other weeks where we weren't doing anything, that's when we were kind of doing Rocky Mountain Slackers. And that was kind of the more broad podcast where we just talked about like, oh, the newest Marvel movie came out. So we talked about that and what we liked about it. Or the newest video game came out. So we talked about that. And that was nice because like I got to talk about more broad stuff that I gave a crap about rather than just like, oh, here we go. Fortnite came out with another, yada yada, which once again was kind of the reason we ended up going away from Once in a Fortnight, because it's like Once in a Fortnight was huge, but it was also just like I care about other things, guys. Like, to see the numbers for Fortnite and then Rocky Mountain Slackers was just kind of like like it hit me, because it's like, hey, I do care about other things. Would you mind going over here and checking this out? And I don't know. So that's Rocky Mountain Slackers. Eventually, right around the same time is when we got our new team member. His name's Nate. Big lifesaver. A lot of lifestyle stuff was happening in the background. So I basically needed another person. He came along, and it was just kind of like love at first sight in a manner of speaking. We gelled really good together. And so right around that time, we changed Rocky Mountain Slackers into Nerd to the Third, kind of going with the whole Thread X3, motif. We decided to go with that. And that once again was basically just a different version of Rocky Mountain Slackers. But it was really important to make it mine and his show rather than the show that was Rocky Mountain Slackers. You know what I mean? Like, it was really important that he felt like he was a part of the team, not just somebody who happened to be on my podcast. You know, because I mean, from ThreadX3 very, you know, words, right? From the very beginning of ThreadX3, it really was about getting people together and having conversations, not just like, hey, let's see what Nick has to say this week. So it was really important for him to feel like this was a part of him. So that's kind of why we went from Rocky Mountain to Nerd to the Third. I know it's a lot.
I would really like to know, and I don't mean to stop you. Like, how do you come up with these new creative names? The Rocky Mountain, ThreadX. Like, do you have like a brainstorm? Like, okay, let's call ourselves this.
Yeah. So ThreadX3 Productions came from, you know, something maybe a little too obvious, but triple threat. So it was like, well, little Google search, triple threat's already taken. And I'm like, well, what kind of interesting way could we do it? Well, let's do ThreadX3. You know, we're threat times 3. And even our logo is more like threat to the third power, but let's not talk about that. But ThreadX3, so we're times 3 the threats. And I guess the philosophy there was always, you know, I'm a real good singer. I like to think that I'm a good actor. And then also, I guess I can't dance, but like I'm really good at talking, and, you know, and so like that was my triple threat. You know, you can have your own triple threat, but that's mine. You know, maybe you're a dad and you're also a cop, and you also, you know, participate in your church's play or something. That's your triple threat. You know, that was kind of always the philosophy there. The Idaho Couch Potatoes was super easy because we were from Idaho. We were trying to get that homegrown kind of thing. Deadly Operative Grunts was more like we were trying to be gamers. No, we're Deadly Operative Grunts. We were trying to really hit that home. Rocky Mountain Slackers was we wanted to still cover, you know, Idaho, but we broadened it to like the Rocky Mountains. So that was kind of more like Northwest. So we're giving you that Rocky Mountain flavor. Nerd to the Third was super easy because it was, we took our ThreadX3 Productions logo, which is like threat inside a little white box that has a little 3 over here. And then I'm like, well, you know, what could we do? And I basically just took out threat, put in nerd, and I'm like, there you go, Nerd to the Third. And the I guess motif that we had going there is that we always had a rotating third chair. So it was Nick and Nate, and then always a rotating third chair. So we always had somebody on. And so that was really cool because it really diversified our, you know, conversation. You know, we never knew what kind of conversation we were going to have next, because it was always like, you know, it was always rotating. So it was always kind of, you know, going on there.
I'm so glad you brought that speaking of conversation, because obviously at the end of the day, people are going to tune in to your podcast is because of the content. So how did you guys go about creating content for your different shows? Was it like a brainstorming session, or was it kind of like, let's get together and talk about this topic, or how did that go?
Well, yeah, I guess for the most part, I've always kind of been the quote unquote producer of the show, where, you know, I kind of figure out what we're going to talk about. My goal was always to talk about what was happening like that week, but our goal was kind of always to talk about it from many points of view, you know, which was part of the reason we had, you know, 3 people, for instance. We always wanted to have 3 people so that we could, you know, like, I guess the main reason was if everybody's agreeing, it's not interesting. Because, you know, I might like Star Wars, but then hate The Last Jedi, but then Nate loves The Last Jedi. And that kind of dichotomy that we have between each other and how we're able to give each other a hard time really made it feel like we're really friends, because you don't ever really truly 100% agree with your friends. And that kind of gave it a feel of you're witnessing friends interacting with each other, and that's kind of always been my inspiration for podcasts in general. Whenever it's one single person, like that one person has to be really interesting for me to keep going. Even then, there can be some episodes that are just kind of whatever, and there's some episodes that are really good. But I found like it was so much easier for me to latch on to a podcast with people. And so that's kind of how I think we really, that's how we did our podcast. It was just easier to figure out. I mean, sometimes I would pick a subject that I knew we were going to disagree on because I wanted to see where the conversation went. That was always really important to me. I never wanted to do a podcast where it's like, hey, it's the Nick show. Here's what Nick has to say about, XYZ or whatever. So many different things, even just nerd culture in general. There's so many things we can talk about a Marvel movie. Sometimes it's as simple as good versus evil, but then there's so much you can get into and talk about, things in the background, themes of what the story is actually trying to say. And getting into things like that are so fun, because it's really just like, it's the type of conversations like maybe you're having a sip of beer and you're just kind of laying back and talking with your friends, and you're like, hey, remember that one part from Goonies? What's up with that? And I'm like, oh God, yeah. And then you go into this huge tirade about that one little part in Goonies. And then you're like, how did we even start that? And that's kind of always what we're going, no matter what we're talking about, that's what we're trying to go for. We're trying to make it feel like a couple of friends talking, having a good time together,
Yeah, those are probably the best conversation I know, especially when I feel like I've been on a podcast interviews where I gave interviews, and back in the days, when I first started podcasting thing, I did them myself as well, where I like a 5-question, boom, 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 and I'm done. I'm like, after the 3 episodes, and like, this is boring as hell. I don't want to do this anymore. And every time somebody had that kind of format, I'm kind of like, okay, let's talk about something else. It's kind of like, I like this raw conversation, because you never know where the conversation is going to go. And then also, the beautiful part about it is, because you don't know where the conversation is going to go, you may learn something out of the conversation that you never even thought about it before. So speaking of learning, all the different conversations you have on your podcast, what are the things that you learn that you're like, wow, that was life-changing?
That's a hard one. We didn't learn a lot. It was really just BSing.
Or did you learn how to BS fine or better?
I think the main thing we learned, like as a group, was to really how to conversate properly. It's super easy when you first start off to be married to your outline, kind of like what you're saying, how when you first started, you just had those questions, boom, boom, boom. I learned to not be so married to that, because when I first started, it was very much so, it's like, I have a format. I want to stick to that format like glue. And so the number one thing I learned is to allow for moments to happen, not to plan every little minute. It's like, okay, this is going to be an hour-long podcast. So it's like, okay, we have these 5 subjects. That means I have 20 minutes or whatever. And so, okay, it's 20 minutes. All right, moving on to the next topic. Let's talk about, when it was too robotic, it was not that it was boring by any means, but at the same time, it just didn't allow for
the raw conversation to take place. It's kind of like when you go on a date and you're like, let's say you have 2 dates booked up on a one day. Okay, I got 10 minutes to go, and then I have another day, so see ya. Kind of thing.
Yeah, like the old sitcom where they're trying to do 2 dates at once or something. Yeah. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things I learned. What's different, like if I go back to my podcast back in the day, it was very much like I had a goal in mind, and I can see it like in my eyes. I can just see it like, okay, you're trying to go somewhere, Nick. Just have a good time and try to have fun. So even nowadays, like I still do a very light outline. Basically, I have a very, like these are the subjects that I want to talk about, but I try to always use that just as an outline. I don't try to be married to it anymore. I just I let it get to a certain point where I can feel like it's starting to trail off, or maybe we're joking and we're having a good time, but the jokes are becoming less and less, about the true nature of the conversation, and we're just BSing. It's like, all right, well, what about this? Have you seen this or something? I try to make it as organic, and that was something I had to learn, I think, to make it more interesting. Because even with most of our podcasts, we always have a very structured nature to it, where it's like, okay, we have subjects that we want to get to, but eventually I got to the point where getting there was the fun. I know that's super cliche, right? But getting there was the fun. It's like I might know the destination, but how I got to that destination, like that's what became fun about it, because there would be so many times where it's like I'd have like a whole outline of things I wanted to talk about. We'd get to half of them, but we'd walk away from it going, oh my God, that was like our best podcast yet. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. So let's move on to the next topic, which will be like, so we got the content part, right?
Mhm.
And then after you do your content, do you do a lot of post-production, or how does your post-production flow looks like, or it is?
We've gone through a weird roller coaster, our very first kind of iteration or whatever was like, okay, let's put a green screen behind us, and then whatever we're talking about will always be playing behind us. That lasted a while. I would say Idaho Couch Potatoes had it, the Dog Show had it, or some iteration of it. And it wasn't until we actually went to podcast where, there was no visual. So I brain farted. What was the question?
The question was like, what does your podcast post-production looks like, or what do you guys do to edit your podcast?
So around Rocky Mountain Slackers, that was like our first time doing podcasts. So it very much was, can I hear myself? Yes. Okay, cool. I honestly, not until I got this baby right here. It is a Blue Snowball.
Yeti?
Yep, Yeti. Yeah. Not until I got this thing did I feel like I really started taking it really serious. Because before it was like, can I hear myself? Can I understand what I'm saying? If the answer was yes, then, GTFO, let's get this going. It was pretty much just like, we had like cool jingles at the beginning and end of our podcast, but that was kind of just it. It wasn't until I think it was definitely Nerd to the Third when we really tried to make a production out of it. So at the beginning there was a jingle, and it was always there. And then between every single segment, in post-production, I would put in some kind of song. I would always rotate the song because I wanted to keep it interesting, keep it fresh, kind of give the listeners something new to hear each time. So like the beginning song was usually always a singular song. It's like, this is so that you're on the wrong, or you're on the right show. But then everything in between was just kind of like, let's mix it up. Let's just have fun with it. And I think that's when I first really came up with the idea for our current project, which is Nerd Radio. We can get into that later. But basically, like, since we were doing an audio, I wanted it to be a show. So I tried to put on a show, and the music interludes was kind of my way of like almost making it radio radio-esque, radio-like, radio light, whatever you want to call it. So I started putting in music interludes, and that was really fun for me because like figuring out what music fit the topic the most, what music sounded the coolest as a transition. And then there was this whole like, I guess, justification for it. Like I was thinking to myself, okay, if I was a listener and I knew that there was these music interludes, then I could basically, if I didn't want to listen to this particular subject, I could just fast forward to the next music and then see if I want to listen to that subject or something. And
yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because this is where my love and hate relationship comes in with the intros and outros, like the pre-done one per se. When you do it, and people who listen to your show all the time, let's say from episode 1 to episode 200 or whatever, and let's say in episode 10 you introduce this intros and then outros, and then if they listen to you and they're a dedicated listener, they're like, okay, for first 30 seconds, it's going to be introduction or script to it. So it's kind of like, that's where I'm like, is it really worth putting it in there? Or do you just naturally, every time you come on and say the introduction to whatever it is, but then it becomes a natural natural flow of the conversation as compared to, let's say, if you get your intros done, professionally made, right? And then most people do that and they sound really good. And if you're doing an interview base, and depending on the person on the other side, their internet connection may not be the greatest, so you may have the lower quality of the audio compared to your intros, and then you go intro really cool, and then the quality drops a little bit. It's kind of like, for me, I personally feel like this is like a little bit of a that's where my love and hate relation comes in. It's like, it's nice, lazy way to do it, and then it's kind of like you plug and play, and there's a system. I get it. You got the intro, then you got the content in the middle, and then you got the outro. You put in the content, you post production, and rip it up, and MP3 good to go, right? That's the one way to do it. And another way, which I try to introduce other people, like, hey, let's just get it, lack of a better word, I used to be a photographer, get it right in the camera, so get it right in the mic per se, where you're like, okay, you don't have to do any post-production. If you get it right in your episode, let's say you do intro, you say it, whatever you want to say. Normally it's the same spiel over and over again, right?
Right,
so you did, boom, and you transition to your content, and at the end you go into your outro, and then your post-production, if you follow this way, it becomes almost obsolete. So, if you want to not spend any time behind the computer at the end of it, when you're done with it, do this format, and then you get an MP3 file. Let's say, for example, right now we are using StreamYard for this. So they give you a video file as well as an MP3 file. You take the MP3 file, put it in your podcast host, and you're done. You write your little show notes, and boom, done. Right. But if you get a Zoom file, for some people who use Zoom for their recording part of it, so that makes it a little bit difficult because they give you a video file and you have to convert it into MP3, but it's not that complicated process. But point being, if you follow the flow of the conversation naturally, the whole thing is done. Like good 95% is done. It's just that then that becomes the 5% the post-production thing. But what I'm really curious to know, if this ever happened to you, because you are a lifestyle podcaster, that's what I'm going to call you from now on, a lifestyle podcaster, because you go to a different industry and you love it. So has it ever happened where your intros or outro got mixed in with the content?
So what do you mean?
Meaning, let's say, for example, you're couch potato. You have a content, but when you're doing the post-production one, because you have so many different episodes or so many different niches, did it ever get mixed up with another podcast show where you like couch potato got mixed up with the serial one, and then the content got switched?
Oh no,
Okay.
Definitely not. I'm very organized in general. Like, don't look at my room because it's a mess. But as far as this, from the very beginning, I tried to take it extremely serious. But no, I usually didn't get anything mixed up, because it was very much kind of just had my own file system for it in my computer, I guess. So yeah, that never happened to me, thankfully.
Yeah. knock on wood so far. I
Yeah,
hope it
right.
doesn't happen again because I can imagine reading like so many different podcasts and you're like, I gotta get these, I don't know, 5 different podcasts, and then you roll to it, boom, 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 boom. Like,
Mhm.
holy crap. Like, I was talking to one of the podcaster not so long ago, and she was like, I got my first episode in, but the last 14 minutes, it didn't come in because I cut it. I'm like, oh, crap.
Oh yeah, I've had stuff like that happen before. I've had an entire podcast basically completely, you know, crap, because instead of recording on my regular mic, it recorded on my laptop mic. I've had that happen a couple of times, and it's just like that was probably one of the best conversations we've had, and I can't use it, because kind of like I was saying before. And once I got this baby, this nice little baby, I was able to start taking it serious. So I think I got to the point where I was like, oh my God, I sounded like crap before. I sounded like absolute crap. And seeing or hearing the difference was really like, it was an eye-opening moment. And that was when I started treating everything more like a show, not just a conversation. The conversation was the show, but then I still presented it like a show. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, there's so many times there was just technical flubs here and there, or we had this really weird thing. I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but eventually, down our history of podcast, we started recording our audios instead of like live like it is right now. We started recording our audio separate. So I would record my audio, he would record his, and then send it to me. And that way we could basically have studio quality sound, because anytime you do something over the internet, the host always sounds great because they're the host. But then the guest or anything, it always depends on their connection. You were kind of mentioning that before, but like if my connection isn't as quick as yours, sometimes the very beginning of my sentence can be a little gargled, and then the middle of it's perfectly fine. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So we started doing it where he would send me his audio, and we had this really weird bug for like almost a year and a half, and we basically just had to deal with it. And it was basically that every minute or so there'd be like a quarter second where it would just not record, I guess, while we weren't talking. And it was never something that we could see physically happening on the screen. It was only something we realized once we got into it. So about 10 minutes in, we'd start realizing that I would start laughing at a joke just a little bit before he would say the joke. Or I would make a comment just a little bit before or reacting to his comment. And I was just like, what's going on here? And so basically we got to a point for a whole year, we had to add a half second every 5 to 10 minutes to make sure that it sounded right. Yeah, it was crazy and probably one of the most stress-inducing moments of our career, just because it was just like, oh my God, here we go again. And eventually we got to the point where we were just used to it. It's like, here we go again or whatever. But every once in a while, there'd just be a wrench thrown in there where it's just like, there's almost like a whole 2 seconds missing. So it's like, we have to remember how the conversation went. You know what I mean? Like, did I laugh here or did I laugh here? Am I saying, like, I'm a type of person that always goes, oh yeah, right, and so a lot of my editing was skipping over Nate, because Nate was always perfect for some reason. So skipping over Nate and just finding my ahas and making sure that the ahas made sense in the context of where they were actually happening. It was a really weird bug that I like.
I'm just curious, purely my personal curiosity is kicking in.
Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, when you were recording that and you had that problem, was it like a remote where someone was somewhere else, or was it the same place, or how?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so actually I live in Boise, Idaho. My co-host for most of this, he lives in Texas. So we have another team member. He lives in a city that's probably like 20 miles from here, but pretty much everything we've been doing remote even before, the whole thou shall not be named. But yeah, we've been doing a lot of things remotely.
So
So
what platform were you using when you were doing the recording part of it? Just out of curiosity.
for a while we were doing Audacity. So we just record it on Audacity, and then he would just send me the
hang on. I'm just curious now. You were doing Audacity, I get it, locally, but when you were communicating between the three of you, three different remote locations, how were you talking to one another?
That would be, I mean, for a while we did Google Hangouts, Google Hangouts was kind of the main one. And that was just because we needed to be able to hear each other. You know what I mean? Like, so it wasn't like we were getting the video for it. Because at this point, we weren't doing video for it. We were just doing the podcast. So we weren't really worried about, getting our faces in or anything like that.
Okay. I was simply curious because I'm like, I know a lot of people use Zoom, a lot of people use Zencaster, then there's a Squadcast, and then obviously there's StreamYard, and then so many different platforms out there. But I never heard that particular scenario before, so I'm just curious for my own curiosity. I have experienced it myself where if I'm talking to somebody across a remote location, let's say in, I don't know, New England or Australia or whatever, depending on the person's connection, you may hear a delay there, and then sometimes it's kind of static, like, and then it's fine, kind of thing. So I was just curious, like, okay, so man, God, for a whole year you did that. Who was doing the post-production?
Me.
Oh, lucky guy.
Yeah,
I feel for you.
Yeah. I definitely going through that, I think, is really why we went the direction we went. Because even after Nerd to the Third, because Once in a Fortnight ended up getting canceled, we kept going with Nerd to the Third. From that point on, we had Nerd to the Third, Hope County Radio, which was for a video game, Far Cry 5. Apex Legends Hubcast was for Apex Legends, which eventually molded into Noob, which stood for Nice Experience with Buddies. But through that whole time, we were basically doing it the remote way. And that I feel like that definitely made us transition into the way we do stuff now, which is kind of like what you were talking about, how we do everything live and then just put it out. But I feel like just like how I got this mic and it really changed the way I do things, now I got my nice little laptop. Hi, how are you doing, baby? You're doing good? Okay. Now I have my laptop, and it opened up because part of the reason we did podcasts is because I had a really crappy computer and we basically couldn't do anything. Sometimes I would even do a video edit, because I was still trying to do YouTube on the side. I'd do a review every once in a while. And so every once in a while we do that. And I basically had to edit a video, and then I'd start exporting that file, go to bed, get up in the morning, and it might be 90% done. So that's how bad my computer was. I was still able to put out stuff, yay me, but that's one reason we kind of strayed from doing video related stuff, is because I had just such a bad computer at the time. So now I have this laptop, and that kind of transitioned into the new way we do stuff. So the easiest way to explain it is, now we're called Nerd Radio. It's in 3RD, so it stands for National Nerd Net Radio Direct. And so now we basically run it just like a radio station, but it's more like it's a talk radio, but also radio. So basically what we do is we stream it live on Twitch, and we'll go for 20 minutes talking about whatever subject we want to talk about. Then we'll have a break for 10 minutes, for music. Usually it averages out about 3 songs. And then we'll come back, you know, hey, how's everybody doing? Okay, let's get into like, hey, you want to talk about this? But now we're doing that for 8 hours a day. So now it's much more of like a broadcast rather than let's make it a show. We still make it a show because we're able to like we have OBS, so we have a lot of scenes together. So we have the capability of like, you know, doing our display and so, oh, let's react to this new trailer, you know, and so we can do that live now. Whereas before my connection was awesome. You know, I'm going like 25 megabytes per second or something, you know, something like that. But my computer was just this ancient brick that barely let me do audio. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that's what was effing up my audio when it had that weird bug or whatever. And so now we're able to do a lot of the stuff live. It sounds, you know, maybe not studio quality because we're no longer getting each individual person's, you know, audio file, but it sounds really good. And it's way less of production or post-production, you know, because now we basically just do the show. It's live, it's on the spot. There's some mess ups, but it's way more fun this way because then kind of like what you were saying, once it's done, it's out there. It's done. We don't have to worry about it. It's just, and like the process going back to looking at myself just a couple years ago and how we did stuff was just like, if I had to do that now I'm up to 2 daughters. I like to call myself a double daughter daddy. So I have 2 daughters now. Imagining myself going through and editing these podcasts. God, I love doing them. But I'm so glad that we do it the way we do it now.
I totally understand. Like I said before, like the first 3 episodes, whole Saturday was spent on editing them. I could not imagine. I mean, I love podcasting, editing, just like you, but it's also nice to have a life as well. So
yeah, that life podcast balance has always and will continue to be important to me because, you know, kind of at the beginning, the whole reason for this was because I found out I was going to have a kid. So on the one hand, I'm juggling, you know, a podcast. I'm trying to build, you know, an empire, quote unquote, trying to build something. But at the same time, it was always very important that I make sure I have time for my family. And so that's another reason why doing it the way we do now is kind of just like, why haven't we been doing it this way? And it was because of my laptop, obviously. But no, even then, it was just like, God, I wish I could have been doing it this way for a while now, because it's just like, now I'm done. I'm over with it. I go out there. I spend time with my wife and kids. And it's just like, I'm kind of just like,
now I probably guarantee you right now, you enjoy it more now compared to before. Before it was like, oh, we had great fun. Now, crap, I gotta edit this. Like, damn.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like I would tell my wife so many times, it's like, I love podcasts. I'm good at it. You know, like, you know, like you were saying, I come up with some really cool, you know, titles. I come up with really cool subjects to talk about. I love doing it. I love the production value that I put into it because it means something to me. You know, it feels good doing it, but everything in between the actual recording of it is an absolute freaking nightmare. And just everything was a slog. Every episode, if people would understand what went into every episode that I put out, maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't have given me shit just because. Oh, sorry, can I curse?
You could do whatever, man. It's free form. It's free form. That's what I love about this. This is so a raw conversation. Say what the hell you want to say.
Good. I'm glad. But yeah, maybe I wouldn't have gotten so much crap because I called armor orange instead of gold. Like, dear God, how dare I call an armor orange instead of gold? But if these people would understand the actual like nightmare I went through every goddamn episode just to make sure to put it out on time, like, I don't think anybody would complain because it's, you know, it's different now. Thank God it's different now.
So wait, so hang on. You would record it on the day of it's gonna go live, or a day before that? You don't batch it in the sense like record a whole bunch of that one day and then let it go,
Uh,
or schedule them
we
out.
got to the point where we would always record maybe 2 days before. We wanted to make sure we had the most up-to-date information because like our
Right.
two big ones were the once in a fortnight. So we wanted to make sure we had the most up-to-date stuff. And so we, and the same thing with our other biggest one would be Apex, because Apex Legends was another real big, battle royale at the time. So we always wanted to make sure. So our turnaround time was record, edit the next day, and then publish. So it was usually a 24-hour, turnaround time for us.
Okay. And I'm just always curious because lately I have been hearing about this platform called Twitch, right? And I'm always curious about this new platform. It's like, how the hell does that work? First of
Yeah,
all, is it like a YouTube live kind of thing where you have to
basically.
build your own? We have to build your own audiences, and then they go watch your stuff, and then that's how it works. Just so I understand it.
Yeah, basically. I mean, the reason we switched to it was, one, technology. I have the technology where I can actually do a lot more stuff than I could before.
Right.
And then the main reason was so that we could have that kind of live aspect to it. We wanted it to make it as much of a radio station feel as possible so that, if somebody wanted to comment on a topic we were talking about, all they had to do is comment in the comments, or they could even have it set up so that if they wanted to, they could join our Discord and they can join in the conversation. We actually have like a channel open so they could join us there. We're not super huge right now, so we haven't really been able to exploit that, but we've definitely had some interesting inputs from our audience, and that's kind of the whole point of us making that change. If we could get to the point, I would love to get back to like podcasts, as far as like just having the segments on the podcast afterwards. But then that's a whole nother, like, back to the whole post-production thing that I'm not really looking forward to doing. That's one thing that I like about Twitch. Right now, we're actually looking at simulcasting, which basically we simulcast to Twitch, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live all at the same time. And so we're trying to defeat that beast right now. And, we'll see how well or bad that goes.
I think you might want to look into the StreamYard thing because I know the StreamYard does the Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and I believe I could be wrong. They also do Twitch, so it might help you out a lot because with this, you could do a lot of overlays, then tickers at the bottom and things of that nature. So I don't know if that's something you are interested in. No, look
I
into
will
it.
definitely look into it.
Yeah, definitely look into that, and then and I'll send you the links after with the email and everything else. So,
Sweet.
so how does like YouTube, right? Like, let's say if you do like the thing they're doing right now, you have to have 1,000 subscriber, 4,000 hours, and you can monetize on those things, whatever for your with the ads and things of that nature for YouTube. Is there something similar to that in Twitch, or how do you go about making any money? I'm just curious because you're spending all this time in there. So what's the return on investment? Or I don't know that platform, so I'm just curious.
Sorry, my microphone got knocked over. So right now we are looking to become affiliates. That's kind of their wordplay, I guess.
Okay.
So to become an affiliate, you have to have a certain amount of hours that you stream per month, which with what we do, super easy because we record 8 hours for one day, basically. So that's super easy for us. That's the easy part. The harder part is we have to get enough followers, which isn't a lot. You only need 50, but we're right around 35 now. And that's just because we technically just started. Even though we've been at this for 5 years, we've just started with Twitch or whatever. So we're at 34. Hopefully someday we'll get to that 50, and then you have to average 3 viewers at a time. Once you get that, you get affiliate. I'll be 100% honest. I don't know what that means after that. Like, do they start advertising us? Do they start? I'm assuming there's some type of because I know, like, if I go onto a Twitch and I go onto somebody's stream, an ad will play. So I'm assuming to a certain extent, once I have enough viewers, then they're watching an ad. That ad gives me, 10 cents CPM or whatever, and so I get a cut of that. So eventually we'll start seeing that. And then the same thing if we start simulcasting, then it's just about, well, what platform are they watching it on? What are the rules there, and so on and so forth.
Right. Okay, cool. So I was just curious because I've been talking to different podcasters who will come on the show. They'll talk about Twitch and then Discord, which I tried to use it one time. I don't really like it personally, but it's
I like it for typing. And then I swear we've tried to talk on it a couple times. I don't know. It's so much more spotty than even just using Google Hangouts. Like I don't know. I have a really good connection, but for some reason Discord, it's shoddy sometimes. And sometimes it'll be awesome. It'll sound like we're right next to each other. And then other times it'll be like, oh. And I'm like, no. I need consistency. I need to feel like I'm in control, because as soon as I'm not, then it's just like, come on.
Cool. All right, cool, man. So last but not least, what I want to talk to you about is how do you go about getting the word out for your podcast? So tell people hey, my podcast is out. What is your process of that?
Well, right now we are relatively new with our nerd radio. So right now we're kind of doing a grassroots approach right now. I just got some signs. I'm an Uber driver, so I'm going to have a sign on the back of my car saying, go to Nerd Radio, twitch.tv/nerd or ThreatX Productions. So right now we're doing kind of grassroots. I'm also looking into a billboard, getting my name up on a billboard and just, hey, Nerd Radio, ThreatX or twitch.tv/ThreatX3. So going grassroots right now. I have tried Facebook in the past, and I don't know. I've never really seen a tangible difference, because I've also done YouTube advertising where we literally made an advertising, and we were trying to be cheesy, hey, come check out, whatever. I'm not going to try to even pretend I know what the hell we said back then. But we tried to do an actual commercial, and I mean, granted, I didn't have a lot of money, but I would see that it got thousands of hits, quote unquote, because obviously you can skip it, right? So I would get thousands of hits, and I think I spent close to $75, got well over 3,000 quote unquote hits, and 2 subscribers. So it's just I don't know. If I had the money, to just bury a whole bunch of money into it at once, then maybe I could have seen a better uptick. But for $50, it was just 2 subscribers. And then even then, how long did they stick around? I would like to say we're in this for 5 years, but we're still kind of new. We've never really been able to really hit a big stride, I guess. At the most, when we were doing Apex Legends, and we were doing it through Anchor does this thing where they do advertisements, and as long as you put the advertisement in your podcast, you start getting money. But at the most, we were making $25 off of a single episode. So granted, we were doing 2-3 episodes a month, so maybe $70 a month, something like that. But it really wasn't oh my God, here we go, we get to quit our jobs now. It was definitely nothing like that. So unfortunately, as far as how do you get people to listen to you, if anybody knows, let me know, because we've been at it for a while, and I'd say that's always been kind of our hardest thing, is to not just get people, but keep people. Because when I can, a really good example of, I think I was just algorithmically lucky, is a game called Hunt Showdown. And it was out for Xbox for the longest time, for like about a year. And then it came to the PlayStation. I did a review on it. Freaking awesome review. Go check it out. Even if you don't like games, just check it out for me, okay? But we got, I want to say we're close to like 30,000, which to some people, that's just like, oh, that's just a Tuesday for me. But for us, it was just like, holy crap, it's just to see those numbers like climbing. And I think the main reason was because, like I said, algorithmically, a lot of people were looking for a review for Hunt Showdown on the PlayStation 4. And anytime they would put in Hunt Showdown PS4, they'd get a Hunt Showdown for the 360 or the PC, but it's a whole year old, you know? Meanwhile, they would come to mine, they'd realize, oh, this is only like a week old, and it's specifically for the PlayStation 4. So algorithmically, it was like, oh, let's check out this guy's review. I think I got like 200 subscribers on YouTube just by that one review. But once again, whether or not they stuck around was really the problem there.
All right, so if you really need some help trying to like increase your listenership or monetizing, you could try this. Are you on Instagram or no?
Yes. ThreadX3 on Instagram.
Okay. Do you use the hashtag marketing pretty much anytime you upload anything on Instagram? Specific to your industry, do the hashtag, whatever. So you get maybe 1 or 2 followers every time you post something. I do that every
hashtag
time.
marketing?
Hashtag marketing, basically what it is, like for example, if I were to put a video or a photo or a text on particular on the Instagram thing in there, then I write a little description. That's what most people do. I'm gonna write a little description and that's that. And then if you do hashtag, whatever the keywords, if you type in, for example, a hashtag fitness, it's going to tell you how many other people have used this particular hashtag. There could be millions, 10,000, and some are just 100. So do any hashtag that is 10,000 and above. So what that does is it will take your photo and put it into this particular screen of that particular hashtag. And then you will get people, believe it or not, they go into these hashtags and look through some of these things and look for people who have pictures in there, and then they will go check out their portfolio. If they like what you see on your Instagram, then they'll go follow you.
Okay.
And you could do up to 28 different hashtags.
Oh, wow.
Which is a lot of hashtags. So imagine if you have one post and then go to 20 different places, 28 different places, and you get, 5 different particular followers. And obviously, like just like anything else, you may get the person to follow you, but if you don't keep your feed to be live and keep it updated, it's going to be like sooner or later, they're going to go away kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's one way to do it. And another way to do, I'm just curious to know, when you did your Facebook marketing, because I know a lot of people do it in a different way, let's just say, and they get nothing out of it. And then other people just do a quick tweak and they make a lot out of it. They get a lot better result just spending $50 on it. So I'm just curious, how do you went about doing it? Just pure out of curiosity.
I think the main way we did it was basically I wanted people who were interested in video games. So we did the hashtag video games and then like hashtag, I don't know if we did nerd. I can't remember, but I know for sure we were looking for people who are interested in video games, because usually people who are interested in video games are also interested in comic books. Oh, that was another one for sure. Comic book characters or comic book movies. And so usually that's always the crossover is video games. And so video games was the main one, but I think we did like video games, movies, comic books. And so we were trying to, get people interested in that.
So you just probably went with the general interest, and then people who like blah, 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 blah. And then with the age group, with the, United States and blah, 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 blah. And then let's say that was your ad. I saw it. Oh, there it is. And when I click on it, what happens next?
They'd get to my YouTube channel.
Okay. Number one mistake right there. Because what you want to do is you want to actually create something. For example, since you are into video game, right? There are 2 big players out there. Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know any other there are, but I'm sure there are, whatever. So
Yeah.
what you might want to do is next time, future reference. I don't know if you did this or not, but if you did, tell me and I'll shut up and I'll say anything.
Okay.
Okay, so go after, let's just say, PlayStation,
Hmm.
and anybody who likes PlayStation. You could do specifically like in the interest part of like anybody who likes PlayStation, and then you break it down to what is your age group that people normally play video game. I don't know. I'm not a video gamer anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
what?
right now. It's like 18 to 35.
18 to 35, right? So within that age group, let's just say United States for giggles if you want. 18 to 35, anybody who likes PlayStation and who lives in the United States, and then you tell them like, hey, what is the benefit for them clicking on that particular link? What are they going to get into it? Because the key thing is everybody's tuning into their favorite radio station, which is WIIFM. What's in it for me? Why
Right.
the hell would I click on this? Like, for example, if you saw advertisement, why would you click on it? What's the benefit in it for you? Right?
Right.
And then the benefit would be, let's say you can download this cheat code for this particular website. I mean, for this game, I don't know. I'm just making things up. You could just
Right.
create a PDF with cheat code and things like that. So what do? You click on here, you enter your name and email, and then you get the cheat code, and that goes into your email list. And then you build your email list, and anytime you want to promote something, you go to your email list and you could direct the traffic to your Twitch, you could direct the traffic to your YouTube, and that's that. Otherwise, you just wasted your money by going there, like doing the way you did, if you think about it, right?
Okay.
So if people who are watching your advertisement, they get nothing out of it. It's just a free click. Okay, what would you do? Whatever. But if I'm gonna give you any kind of information, like my email, especially and name, then if I get something out of it, you just added value to me. Like, you are awesome, Nick. You gave me this cheat code that I could use while I'm playing my video game.
Right.
And then I'm more inclined to hear more back from you. And then you send out another email. It's called like email marketing. I'm sure you know of it. You get that all the time. Those
Right.
coupons and things on it. You're like, sometimes you're really excited about like, yes, I can save $10 in here. I was like, crap, spam, delete, click unsubscribe kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So you might want to consider doing that. It may be beneficial. Same thing with the YouTube market. Anywhere else, for example, don't send them to directly to your YouTube channel, because unless you're planning on increasing your view, if you just solely care about your views and nothing else for a YouTube video, you could do a cheaper route, which is create it at same concept. Anybody who likes PlayStation, 29 to 34, and then people who are from Pakistan and India. If you just care about increasing your view, because over there you could spend $50 and get 2,000 views, because just traffic over there is cheaper.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And then that's number one. So let's say you did that for like $50, right? And then what you also can do is after the ad has been done, you could say, okay, now that all the people who engage with this particular ad create a lookalike audience and then go to the US market, and then same concept. But in this way, Facebook knows who are the people who clicked on your ad, and then they will create a lookalike audience, and then your cost spend will be a lot lower. So you may spend only $25 and you get a lot more effective that way.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how the game is played.
Right.
So try that if you want to. Food
Yeah,
for thought.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. So let's wrap this little bad boy up. I truly enjoy talking to you. So before we go away, tell our audiences how they can get in touch with you if they want to know more about you or learn more about you, or if they have a question for you. The floor is all yours.
All right. Well, yeah. Once again, I was Nick. Hi, everybody. Bye, everybody. And we're ThreadX3 Productions. So the main places you can go for that is at TX3 Productions on Twitter, ThreadX3 Productions on Instagram, just ThreadX3 Productions at gmail.com if you just want to email us directly. ThreadX3 Productions on YouTube, ThreadX3 on Twitch. We tried to keep it as uniform as possible, but obviously with character restrictions, we had to, mess around with the format. But any sense, usually Threat Actuary Productions is the place to go for that.